In this episode, we will talk about Aurangabad, now called Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, being an important city in the Maharashtra polls. We will also talk about a call for indefinite shutdown by the Dimapur Chamber of Commerce and Industries in Nagaland. But first, we will talk about the sugar content in baby products surpassing the international food safety guidelines. Hi, I am Niharika Nanda, and you are listening to 3 Things, the Indian Express news show. Last week, an international report claimed that global food and beverage giant Nestle sells baby products with higher sugar content in poorer South Asian, African and Latin American countries as compared to markets in Europe. This report was published by the Swiss NGO Public Eye in collaboration with the International Baby Food Action Network. In their investigation, the organizations scrutinized around 150 baby products sold in different countries, including India, and found that they had sugar over and above international food safety guidelines. In this segment, my colleague Shashank Bhargav speaks to Indian Express's Anonna Dutt about this report and the concerns it raises.
Anonna, so begin by telling us what exactly does this report claim and what does it specifically mention about India?
So the report has actually looked at various Nestle baby foods, one of the most common brands being Cerelac, across different countries. So they've looked at a lot of Southeast Asian markets, Latin American countries, some countries from the Africa. So they got these products tested to find out the actual sugar content in the product and not just on the label. And they compared that to what was present in, say, European markets. This is a Swiss NGO which came out with the report, and what they've claimed is that Nestle, which is a global food and beverage giant, they actually add more sugar to their products in the poorer markets as compared to European countries. When it comes to India, they have tested around 15 products in India, most of which is Cerelac, the wheat-based supplemental food for babies over the age of 6 months. And they found on average these products contain about 2.7 grams of added sugar, whereas a lot of these products in the European markets contain no added sugar at all.
And from this report, can we tell which country sees the most amount of sugar added to its products?
So yes, they have tested it from several countries like Philippines, Nigeria, Senegal. So the highest sugar content that they have found across products, across countries, was in the Philippines, where 5 out of the 8 products tested had added sugar, and the sugar per portion that they found in the product was 7.3 grams. To compare, India's was, like I said, 2.7 grams.
And Anonna, we are using this word added sugar, right? Can you explain what that means and how is that different from what we typically think of as sugar?
So added sugar is anything that's not naturally present in a food item. So for example, a fruit also contains sugar. These, the sugars in the fruits, they are not as harmful to you if you consume it. So you can have these whole fruits and they have fibers, and along with the sugar, so there isn't a sugar spike that you would see if you say take just like 1 spoonful of sugar as is. So these sugars are all right. These are called natural sugars. Added sugar is something which is not natural, which is, it could be just a spoonful of sugar that you add to your tea or coffee, but more importantly, there's a lot of this hidden added sugar in all the packaged products. So, of course, we think that it is there in, biscuits, cookies and cakes. But what we don't think is that these added sugars are also there in, say, your ketchup, or a lot of the processed food would have these things. Anything that contains, for example, corn syrup or malt, all of this would be considered to be added sugar. And this is actually usually mentioned on the pack that the food contains such and such quantity of added sugar.
And is there a limit to which we can safely consume added sugar? And do we know what happens when we go beyond that?
So there is not a limit in terms of if you're talking about the legal aspect of it, like the FSSAI, which regulates food items in the country, does not have a legal limit up to which food manufacturers are supposed to limit the sugar in their products. However, if you look at the WHO recommendation, it says children or adults, they shouldn't get anything more than 10% of their entire calorie intake of the day from added sugar. In fact, they suggest it should be as low as 5%. 5% is better. So 5% comes up to about, say, 25 grams of added sugar in the entire day. Now, the problem with that is, yes, we can keep a count on how much sugar we are adding to things at home. But when we are consuming the packaged food items, we don't essentially stick to the portion sizes that they actually talk about on the pack. So when they say 7.3 grams in one portion, not necessary that we stick to that one portion for every time we consume, say, chips or biscuits. And sometimes we don't even think that the products can have sugars, but they do, as preservatives or, just as flavoring. And that adds up to a lot more than 25 grams in a day. So it's very difficult to stick to that 25 gram limit.
Right. And what do doctors and experts say about what this increased amount of sugar does to our body?
So what we've seen over the years is two things. One, our physical activity has gone down. And second, we have started consuming a lot of processed and packaged food items, especially in the urban settings. And that has started to lead to childhood obesity. I mean, now, the doctors usually see a lot of children who are overweight or obese. And in fact, they even diagnose type 2 diabetes in children in their teenage. So all of this consumption has resulted in people developing non-communicable diseases like, diabetes, hypertension, heart diseases, etc. early on in life. Aside from that, when we are talking about the baby formula and baby formula containing added sugar, what is a concern that doctors have raised is that it gets children addicted to sugar very early on in life. So doctors usually recommend that children consume only, bland, not flavorful foods. And that's because then they get used to eating those kinds of things, and then they can, of course, later in life develop whatever the taste they like. But if you are eating sugar-rich food since childhood, then you cannot eat something that doesn't have sugar. And that's a big concern. So you tend to then eat sweeter foods through life.
And you mentioned that the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, FSSAI, does not actually have a limit on how much manufacturers can put added sugar in a product. So does that mean someone manufacturing a food product in India can add as much added sugar to their product as they want?
Yes, technically, because the regulations that govern infant food formula in India, they have a list of items where they've said that it should contain this much carbohydrate, it should contain this much protein, these many minerals, this much iron, this much zinc, whatever. So they have a list on how much of these nutrients should be present in the product. So that kind of restricts how much sugar you can add. But the regulations don't specifically mention, okay, this is the upper cutoff for added sugars in infant formula. In fact, there is a specific line that mentions that even fructose and sucrose, which are added sugars, they can be added to these products as carbohydrates. So when we talk about these sugars, they are not just simply sugars, they are carbohydrates. And so the Indian regulations do permit the addition of these things as carbohydrates in baby formula, as long as they make up only 20% of the carbohydrate in the entire food. But that's still, giving the companies, the leeway to add sugars to children's meals.
And Anonna, can you also talk about what listeners can look out for in their food packaging so that they know how much sugar is in it?
So what is important for people to check is the breakup of the nutrients, which is also present on every packaging. And they would specifically mention under carbohydrates or sugars, the total quantity of added sugars. And that is the important thing that we have to keep in mind. And also, of course, the serving size, because sometimes the serving size that is mentioned in the pack is not essentially what we end up eating. Like it could be a small juice pack which is meant for 2 servings, but we might finish it in 1 serving. So then you have to double the quantity of sugar that you're taking in. So that is something that people have to keep in mind. And also, usually packages mention the percentage of recommended daily intake that you should have. So that is a percentage of, say, how much sugars you can safely consume in a day. They would give a percentage on the packaging that this contains, say, 7% of your recommended daily intake. So that is also a good marker to look at when buying products.
Also, since this report came out, have the Indian authorities taken a note of it?
Yes, they have actually. So initially we were told that, of course, the Indian authorities would reach out to this Swiss NGO and try to get the reports of the products that they've already tested. But since then, last week, in fact, the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India has directed the state food authorities to start collecting samples of baby formula. Not just Nestle, of food products across brands, and they would be testing it and coming out with a report on what are the constituents of these baby food products.
And what have we heard from Nestle regarding this report? Have they reacted to it at all?
Yes, we did get a reply from Nestle India, which said that they have over the years worked on bringing down the sugar content in their food items, and that they are constantly innovating and bringing in newer formulations to ensure that they serve a healthy meal. And they also said that they stick to any regulations that are in place already.
And next we talk about Maharashtra, which has witnessed a lot of political upheavals in the past 5 years. Now, as the two Shiv Sena factions go head-to-head in these polls, the political fault lines are clearly evident in the city of Aurangabad, which was renamed Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar back in 2022. Known for its communal sensitivity, this constituency is currently represented by AIMIM's Imtiaz Jalil. And among the many political rhetorics that he is battling at the moment is both factions of the Sena claiming credit for renaming the seat. To learn about the region's significance, the underlying political dynamics, and the public sentiments shaping the region, we are joined by Indian Express's Shubhangi Khapre. Shubhangi, can you begin by telling us about the politics of why Aurangabad's name was changed to Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, and why is it an important seat?
Yes. See, this is the first parliament elections that's taking place after the city Aurangabad was renamed as Chhatrapati Sambhaji Maharaj Nagar. Now, Chhatrapati Sambhaji Maharaj was a great warrior king and a son of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, who is highly revered warrior king of Maharashtra, and not only Maharashtra, across the country. The renaming issue was first raised in 1995 when Shiv Sena and BJP, then they were alliance partners, and the government had come in Maharashtra. And at that time, for the first time, this renaming issue had taken kind of, you can say, was escalated in the form of protest. And, for the first time, it also reached the masses, where it became a very emotive kind of a issue. Because given the background of Aurangabad, it is a communally sensitive area with sizable Muslim dominance, and historically also because it was a part of Nizam's rule and Mughal rule and that kind of thing. And so in that context, yes, the renaming was an important issue. And last year, when the Shinde government, Chief Minister Eknath Shinde, in alliance with BJP and Ajit Pawar-led NCP, formed the government here in Maharashtra, this government enforced this, which has been pending for very long. And last year, they enforced it, and they also got the approval from the center. So in that context, yes, these elections are very interesting because first time the elections are taking place in a constituency which has been renamed.
Now, you write that the fault lines in Maharashtra can really be seen here. Talk about who all are competing for this seat.
Yes, in this election, essentially there are two major alliances which are contesting across Maharashtra. One is called Mahayuti. And Mahayuti is again an alliance of essentially three major parties. And of course, there are smaller groups also. But when we say Mahayuti, it's like Shiv Sena led by Shinde, Chief Minister, BJP, and NCP led by Ajit Pawar. This is a ruling combine. It's called Mahayuti. And the opposition is called Mahavikas Aghadi. And their constituents are Shiv Sena, that is led by Uddhav Balasaheb Thackeray, and that is Uddhav Thackeray's party, and one is led by NCP, breakaway group of Sharad Pawar, and Congress. So these are the two major poles, we can say, Mahayuti versus Maha Vikas Aghadi. Now, in Aurangabad's context, if we have to speak, here the candidate from the ruling combine is a candidate from Shiv Sena led by Eknath Shinde's faction, and he is a state minister, Sandipan Bhumre, and he's a candidate here from the ruling alliance. From the opposition, it is Uddhav Thackeray's candidate, who's also a very senior, experienced leader, who's a 4-term MP, Chandrakant Khairy, and he was also a minister at the center. So in that context, yes, this election is between a very seasoned politician, Chandrakant Khairy, versus Shinde's breakaway group, that is Sandipan Bhumre, who's a state minister. And the sitting MP here in Aurangabad is from AIMIM, that is Imtiaz Jalil. So this time it's going to be a triangular battle. One is Eknath Shinde Sena and versus Uddhav Thackeray Sena and Imtiaz Jalil of MIM, we can say. So this is going to be interesting to see.
And Shubhangi, this region has seen a lot of political upheaval in the recent past. What would you say are some of the biggest issues that the election here will depend on?
See, this entire region, including Aurangabad, is one of the constituencies in the Marathwada region. Now, Marathwada with 8 districts has 8 Lok Sabha constituencies. And in this district, the major issue which has been there for pretty long is drought. You know, this entire Marathwada region is drought-prone region. So every election, this issue of water crisis is always dominant. But also, apart from that, what makes this election a little different? See, in 2014, 2019, despite all the issue, all the problems of water issues or, the drought and everything, ultimately it was Modi factor, because 2014, one actually saw the Modi wave across Maharashtra, and Marathwada was no exception in that sense. The other factor is this Maratha reservation, So in 2018, when Devendra Fadnavis was Chief Minister of Maharashtra, he had, through a legislation in a state legislative assembly, given 12 and 13% reservation to Marathas in jobs and education through a socially and economically backward class act. But that legislation, that decision was challenged in Bombay High Court and then in Supreme Court. In Bombay High Court, it withstood the legal challenge. But when it was challenged in Supreme Court, the Supreme Court in 2021 May scrapped it, saying that, the backwardness of Maratha community is a question and it has to be established. So there were certain things, certain issues they had raised Supreme Court. So again, this issue became a major issue with Zarange Patil, who was a Maratha activist leading the entire protest last year. Since August 2023, he sat on indefinite strike for 17 days at Antarwali Sarati, a village in Jalna district. Now, the undercurrents of this Maratha reservation are very strong across Marathwada region, and that includes Aurangabad also. And Imtiaz Jalil believes he has done good work for the 5 years. He has shown the people of Aurangabad that he has always been there when they wanted. And he has, despite belonging to minorities, he has never made that kind of discrimination. He has ensured there's no communal tension in the region. He has always been there for people. So he's purely banking on development of Aurangabad and no discrimination between the communities. So these are the 3 major factors.
And if we talk about the Uddhav Thackeray Shiv Sena, does the party find a lot of support here?
I think there is a sympathy factor. Uddhav Thackeray is getting some sympathy factor there right now, because there is a feeling, whether people vote or not vote, we are not predicting that. But yes, when we talks to people in general, then we get this sense that, people feel that, ultimately when it comes to Shiv Sena, it has always been Bal Thackeray Shiv Sena. I mean, there cannot be any dispute about it, because that was the party which was founded by Bal Thackeray and everybody knows it. And there's also this feeling that, when the rebel took place and when parties split, there's also this sense one gathered among some followers, sympathizers, or some neutral people also, even spoke to. They felt that, that original title of the party and the symbol bow and arrow should have been retained with Uddhav Thackeray. Because ultimately, when it comes to the real Sena, it was founded by his father. So there's this sense of, something has gone wrong, and Eknath Shinde was the chief minister. Of course, the decision was taken by Speaker in the State Legislative Assembly. So in that sense, one cannot comment on that issue, because ultimately Eknath Shinde party got a recognition through the Speaker as a real Sena. But yes, amongst the people, there's a sympathy factor in favor of Uddhav. One can easily sense that.
And what kind of a challenge does this pose for the other Shiv Sena faction that is led by Chief Minister Eknath Shinde?
See, I think the challenge for Chief Minister right now in that constituency would be to basically not so much as whether he's a splinter group, breakaway group or something, but also about the candidate's identity. So he'll have to really push hard the candidate's identity, because there are people who still feel when it comes to Sena, they feel first it's Bal Thackeray Sena. Secondly, they feel Chandrakant Khaire is the candidate. Now, Chandrakant Khaire is a seasoned old face candidate who's known to the people, who's been in this constituency for very long, who's a resident of Aurangabad, as vis-a-vis Sandipan Bhumre, whose roots are in Jalna, which is a neighbouring district. So yes, that challenge will be there for Chief Minister, because he'll have to push the identity of his own candidate very aggressively to strike a chord with the people in this Aurangabad constituency.
Also, the other party in the fray is the AIMIM. What kind of a support does it see there, and who all is it hoping to find support from?
This time, the Muslim consolidation across Maharashtra, from what one gathers from the ground reporting, is that they will not go with BJP. The exceptions could be here and there. So they will prefer the opposition. But given the composition of Aurangabad, here the minorities might go for Imtiaz Jalil, because he was the only MP representing minorities in Lok Sabha. So, out of 48 seats that BJP, Shiv Sena, Congress, NCP in the last elections, if you see. So Imtiaz Jalil was the only candidate representing Muslims in Lok Sabha from Maharashtra. So yes, he has a very strong connect, strong bond with the community as far as Aurangabad is concerned. But he's also banking on support from the non-Muslims also, because there are some people who feel that yes, he has kind of done good work. Well, it's difficult to say who will vote whom, but yes, he's purely banking on Dalits and Muslims.
And Shubhangi, you also talked to the people of Aurangabad. So what did they have to say about the challenges that they face, and what were their views on the candidates running there?
See, the people in Aurangabad, the major issue there is basically about, water. In his first tenure as Chief Minister, Devendra Fadnavis had focused a lot, on making the state drought-free. Yeah, in his first tenure as Chief Minister of Maharashtra in 2014 to 19, Devendra Fadnavis, who led BJP Shiv Sena coalition government in Maharashtra, he had launched a Jal Yug Shivar scheme. That was water conservation scheme, where they had shortlisted 25,000 villages, and it was a scheme undertaken to mitigate drought. Then the challenge was to make Maharashtra drought-free. But after 2019, the power equations changed in Maharashtra. Now, in the given background, yes, the issue of drought remains a challenge for all political parties, because there's some geographical as well as, climatic issues there. When you talk to people, you get the sense that, yes, this is one of the major issues there. The second issue is about unemployment, because they have good institutions in Aurangabad. There's a drive for education, literacy across the communities, and people are taking to education. There are graduates, postgraduates, but the whole problem there, the people said, is where are the jobs? And the third factor is that Aurangabad, which was kind of being industrialized, the process of industrialization in Aurangabad, which had begun, say, 10 years ago, that is still at a slow pace. It has not moved to the extent as was expected. So industrialization, getting big industries, getting mega projects so that, that could generate employment for the locals. These are some of the issues one actually could hear from the people's voice. When one spoke to people, these were the issues: unemployment and water crisis. This was a major issue in the region.
And in the end, we talk about Nagaland. On Friday, the 26th of April, the Dimapur Chamber of Commerce and Industries in Nagaland called a shutdown to protest alleged government inaction to protect businesses in Dimapur, the commercial hub of the state. People made a beeline to the neighbouring state of Assam to buy essential commodities as the indefinite shutdown against extortion by the Naga political groups threw normal life out of gear in Nagaland, with the stir entering the third day yesterday. The Confederation of Nagaland Chamber of Commerce and Industries supported the call, following which shutdowns were imposed in other districts from Saturday. Markets remained shut across the state, although no restriction on the movement of people and traffic has been imposed. The Confederation of Nagaland Chamber of Commerce and Industries announced that the indefinite statewide shutdown would be relaxed for 6 hours from noon to 6 p.m. today to allow the public to procure essential items, because the shutdown was imposed in many districts without giving prior notice to the people. The CNCCI urged the government to take steps to stop unabated extortion and intimidation by underground groups. State Home Commissioner Vicky E. Kenya has directed the police to take stringent measures and instructed the district administrations to report any violation of ceasefire ground rules to the Ceasefire Monitoring Group for appropriate action, and also continue arresting the underground cadres found extorting under the National Security Act. On the other hand, the Dimapur Chamber of Commerce and Industries on Saturday submitted a 5-point charter of demands to the state government through the Deputy Commissioner of Dimapur. It also wondered whether the business community should pay GST or the taxation of the Naga political groups. The local organization also demanded that extortion, kidnapping and waylaying of transport should be dealt with swiftly and with full force without impunity. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by Shashank Bhargav and me, Niharika Nanda. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.